Okay, yeah, that did not work as I expected. I don't know if you can see, but the threads on this are chewed up. This was not easy to tap, so I'm gonna do something else other than this. It's a good thing I have a second piece, because this one's garbage now. Okay, so instead of tapping this and using set screws on this, I'm just going to weld this piece, the spacer, onto the brake drum here. There wasn't a whole lot of material on the spacer to put threads on, and even if I did put some, they just got absolutely chewed up. And it wasn't a whole lot of threads either, so it'd be a lot better if I drill this, tap this instead. Just put another set screw on here or two just to make sure, and then I can weld this to the brake drum. Yeah, I was going to make the spacer its own piece. I don't think the wall thickness is thick enough to put that many threads on. Yeah, so these marks are off. At least this one is, but that's okay because this ain't really square. So as long as I can get this centered here, I can go and make new marks here and drill them out with the holes that I just made on this sprocket. Okay, so when hammering this axle out, just be very, very careful not to damage your threads. I looked out, my thread is okay. I'm running into another problem here. This was supposed to be the 15mm spacer that I ordered. Well, it turns out this is not 15mm. This is about 12. The ID on this is 12mm. Now, they said it was 15. I can't use this spacer. The ID is about 15, almost 15, but for the sake of simplicity, this is a 15mm ID. So I'm gonna have to use this spacer here. Now this is 5/8. It fits on here almost snug. There is just a little bit of play, but I'm just gonna have to use this. Alright, so I got everything all kind of mocked up back here. This is kind of the idea of how this back end is going to be. Made my own little bracket here, my little hub that mounted into this sprocket here, and then I welded it to this brake drum. Now right now, there's only one set screw that's holding these two assemblies together. Well, they're all one piece, but there's only one set screw. If this becomes an issue, I can go ahead and drill a hole and weld a nut here, and then you know, have another set screw. Now this spacer here is a little thicker than the spacer that I had, so I could probably, well no, I'm not going to attempt to tap that. I'll just weld a nut there and then, you know, have another set screw just bite down. Now this area was kind of tricky because I had to get the correct distance here with this spacer, and then there's a spacer in here which you can't see because it's hidden in the cassette. I had to go and grind down just a little bit just to bring this cassette in just a little bit to the right so I can help with alignment with that sprocket back there. Now I don't know how this wide crank assembly is going to act. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all 7 gears because of how far that sprocket is out here, but I think it kind of may have just helped a little bit bringing this closer in on this side. This cassette's its own piece, it's not welded to the brake drum. That way I could take the sprocket off. So if I weld that to this, you won't be able to take the sprocket off. Now you can go and get a different axle, a 5/8. You'll just have to pop these bearings out and put in new bearings that have an ID of 5/8, so you can have a 5/8 axle in. That would make life way easier. Unfortunately, if you do that, then you'd have to get new brakes and a new cassette because those hubs are not for 5/8 ID. Okay, so I drilled just a little bit through this axle here. I might go just a little bit deeper so that way the bolt can sit inside the axle. Kind of curious, when the liner on this brake band wears out, you can't replace it unless you drill that out and then put your own bolt here, but then you got this up here as well. I'm assuming if this all wears out, you just replace the whole assembly. By the way, keep in mind, this whole thing can slide. That way you can adjust it. I squared the brakes away, so now it's not catching on the brake. These nuts that were acting as a spacer, they were pointless. They were just rattling around and I didn't really need them. But for future reference, because I got everything all on and I really don't want to take everything off, if your bolts are orientated like that, that's the wrong way to have it. It should be flipped around, because as you're pulling on this thing, the threads are going to be exposed and you may touch the drum on this side. So, and there's a reason why there's holes on the drum here, so you can put your little screwdriver in, because this is a Phillips head. You put a screwdriver in on this side and then you torque it down with a wrench on this side, so that way you don't have the threads exposed over here and potentially rubbing up on your drums. Luckily I don't have that issue because there's this little space here. I don't have that issue, but just for future reference, mine came like this, so if you have it like this and you're already messing with your brakes, you might as well just flip it around. That's how I know that the orientation of this axle is flipped up. It's because I could see the hole that I drilled down here. So that's how I know this is up. So this is the flat part here that I'm going to bolt down to. Okay, there it is. I got the tensioner on. It's welded on here. It's kind of tricky because the tubing on the bike is thinner and this angle iron is 1/8 inch thick, so it's a little tricky welding it. So up here wasn't all that good. Then I started figuring it out and it got better. My tensioner right there. This was hard to make because I wasn't really going off of any measurements. I was just eyeballing everything. So I had to make sure that the chain, that this was welded on straight and that this was welded on straight. So that's how it's going to be. It's to tension it, you move this down and it'll tension the chain. There's still a lot more room to go up and down. That's kind of the middle area of the tensioner on this side. I finished welding this, so these 2 units are solid. I got that squared away. So the back end's pretty much squared away right now. The only thing that I have to do is just the crank arms. That's it. I got another throttle cable on the way. That one was too short. Yeah, this cable is too short. This is a 36-inch and I ordered a 47-inch. So I just needed it just a little bit longer to do that loop around. But besides that, now I can just put the basket back on, get the wheels on, and tighten everything up down there. Yeah, so I forgot. I also have to do the exhaust because I'm not going to leave the exhaust like that. I gotta make some sort of pipe that will snake around here and come out the back. So I'm thinking, have it snake through here. I want to keep it away from the legs, but it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to keep it away from your legs because the exhaust port comes out through the side here. So I have to snake it up through here and route it back here somehow and keep it away from the derailleur too. I'll figure that out later, but for now, I'm calling it. See you in the next one.